This is the new AMC 2-liter 4-cylinder overhead cam engine. It's compact, light, and efficient, and it has several unique features not common to other American Motors engines. Some of these unique features involve the valve train, a belt-driven overhead camshaft, and oil system. In addition to unique design features, with a few exceptions, all bolts, nuts, and threaded connections and every machined part in the engine is metric, so quite naturally, metric-sized tools are required for servicing. To make your servicing of the 4-cylinder engine easier, AMC has prepared two aids: this sound film presentation and the technical service manual. These materials, along with the service manual, will provide all the information you need for proper engine servicing. This exploded view of the 4-cylinder engine block shows a conventional 5-main bearing crankshaft, connecting rod, and piston arrangement. This is a close-up of the camshaft, the valve system, and oil pipe. They are quite different than the more conventional head and valve arrangement. For example, the camshaft is driven by a toothed timing belt. The camshaft does not have insert-type bearings. The head and caps make up the bearing surface. In this film, we will primarily focus our attention on the cylinder head. This involves head bolt torque, valve tappet adjustment, and setting camshaft timing. We'll also look into replacing valve seals, valve grinding, replacing oil seals, and the engine lubrication system. Let's start with a required periodic maintenance function: the right way to tighten head bolts to proper torque. A special sequence must be followed when checking, tightening, or loosening cylinder head bolts. The sequence for tightening is as shown. Take care to note that when removing the cylinder head from the engine block, the loosening sequence is just the reverse of the tightening sequence. To properly retighten cylinder head bolts, first bring the engine to normal operating temperature. Then remove the cylinder head cover and 4-piece gasket. Back off each head bolt 1/8 turn and retighten it to specification, 1 bolt at a time, following proper sequence. Next in line for periodic servicing is checking and adjusting valve tappet clearance. This is the valve arrangement. Take note of the bucket tappet and adjusting screw. These are unique and require special servicing techniques. Valve tappet clearances are periodically checked and, if necessary, adjusted. Let's see how. It is best to check and adjust valve tappet clearances with the engine warm. That is, the coolant temperature over 35 degrees centigrade or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and the cylinder head feels warm to the hand when touched. To check clearances, turn the crankshaft in the direction of normal engine rotation to set the lowest part of the camshaft lobe on the bucket tappet. Here's an important caution. Do not turn the camshaft by putting a wrench on the camshaft sprocket nut. This can cause timing belt damage. Use a feeler gauge to measure tappet clearances. Proper clearances are listed in the film reference booklet and the technical service manual. When it becomes necessary to adjust tappet clearances, this special tool and a 1/4-inch drive ratchet wrench are required. Insert the special adjusting tool into the Allen head screw in the bucket tappet. The adjusting screw must be turned in increments of a complete full turn. 1 complete turn alters clearance by 0.05 millimeters, or about 2/1000ths of an inch. Turning the adjusting screw clockwise decreases clearance. A counterclockwise turn increases clearance. Remember, each full turn changes clearance by 0.05 millimeters. That's 2/1000ths of an inch. When turning the adjusting screw properly, a snapping sound will be heard when the flat side of the adjusting screw is seated on the valve stem. After valve tappet clearance has been adjusted and rechecked with a feeler gauge, check the position of all adjusting screws in the tappets with a special adjusting screw position gauge. The outer edge of the tappet must be between the notches or in the depressed area of the gauge. If any adjusting screw is not within tolerance, that screw must be replaced. In order to replace an adjusting screw, the camshaft must be removed from the cylinder head. Attempts to remove and replace an adjusting screw with the camshaft in place can result in damage to the valve stem, tappet, or adjusting screw. To remove the camshaft, remove the timing belt cover and relieve the tension on the timing belt idler pulley. Slip the timing belt off the camshaft sprocket. Remove the bolts securing the distributor housing to the cylinder head. Then remove the distributor housing. Mark all caps and their position. Number them 1 through 5 for reinstallation reference. The camshaft caps must not be interchanged. Now, remove the oil distribution pipe by removing the 2 nuts on number 2 and number 4 camshaft journal caps. Carefully pull the oil pipe plastic elbow out of the number 1 cap. Since there is a spring-loaded tension against the camshaft, it is necessary to fully reinstall the cap nuts on number 2 and 4 caps. Remove the 2 machine bolts from the end of cap number 5. This cap controls camshaft end play. Remove nuts from camshaft caps number 5, number 1, and number 3 in that order. Remove these caps. Now, alternately and evenly loosen the nuts on caps number 2 and number 4. Then, remove these 2 caps. Remember, the cap removal sequence is important because it compensates for the spring tension on the camshaft. The camshaft and sprocket will now easily lift straight up and out of the cylinder head. To replace an adjusting screw, simply lift the bucket tappet out of the cylinder head and remove the adjusting screw with a special tool. If more than 1 tappet is to be removed, number the tappets beforehand because each tappet must be kept in its original location. To attain both the proper tappet clearance and adjusting screw setting, adjusting screws are available in 5 different sizes. Hash marks on the end of the screw identify screw sizes. Here's how. A screw with no hash marks is the thinnest size. 1 mark is the next larger size, and 4 hash marks identify the thickest screw. Select and install the appropriate size adjusting screw, a thicker one if the positioning gauge was in too far, or a thinner one if the gauge was too far out. Then reinstall the tappet in the cylinder head. Here's another unique service item. The distributor drive gear is not part of the camshaft. It is serviced separately. The distributor drive gear may be removed with a small gear puller. Use a plastic hammer to install the drive gear. Tap the gear in place until fully seated on the camshaft. To reinstall the camshaft, carefully position the camshaft in the cylinder head bearing surfaces. Make sure the proper cap is matched with its camshaft position. Loosely install caps. Then alternately tighten caps 2 and 4 to proper torque. Now tighten caps 5, 1, and 3 in that order. To reinstall the oil pipe, it is necessary to remove the oil pipe retaining nuts from caps 2 and 4 again. Then install the oil pipe with the plastic elbow seated in number 1 cap. Tighten the nuts on caps 2 and 4 to proper torque. Recheck valve tappet clearances with the feeler gauge and adjusting screw position gauge. Make necessary adjustments. Replace the 4-piece cylinder head cover gasket and install the cylinder head cover. Whenever the timing belt is removed and reinstalled to perform services such as camshaft removal and installation, the camshaft must be timed. Camshaft timing is done in 4 easy steps. First, make sure that the notch on the crankshaft V-belt pulley is aligned with the 0 mark on the engine timing index plate. Turn the crankshaft in direction of normal rotation to achieve this alignment. Second, align the mark on the camshaft sprocket with the mark on the cylinder head cover. Third, be sure to keep belt slack on the idler pulley side of the engine and install the timing belt. Adjust belt tension by turning the timing belt idler pulley counterclockwise and tightening it in place. Proper tension is reached when the belt can be twisted a quarter turn with medium effort. Over-tightening of the belt can cause rapid wear and lead to belt failure. And last, reinstall the distributor housing on the cylinder head. Be sure that the rotor is aligned with the mark on the distributor housing. This positions the rotor to fire the number 1 spark plug. The initial timing must also be set. The timing belt cover may now be bolted in place. This completes the service procedure on tightening head bolts, adjusting valve tappet clearance, camshaft removal and installation, and camshaft timing. Other service procedures which can be performed with the engine in the car are the removal and replacement of valve spring caps, valve stem oil seals, valve springs, keepers, and exhaust valve rotators. Note that only the exhaust valves have rotators. Let's take a look at valve stem oil seal replacement. The other parts mentioned can be replaced using the same procedure. To replace a valve stem oil seal, first follow the procedures for camshaft and bucket tappet removal from the cylinder head. Remember to number the tappets for installation reference. The next step is to remove the spark plugs. Screw an air pressure hose adapter into the spark plug hole of the cylinder requiring replacement of the valve stem oil seal. Apply continuous air pressure to keep the valve from dropping down into the cylinder head. A word of caution here. Keep hands and other items clear of fan blades. Air pressure could cause the engine to turn over. Set up the special valve spring compressing tool on the cylinder head and depress the valve spring downward. Take care not to scrape or damage the bucket tappet wall. Carefully remove the 2 keepers from the valve stem. If the keepers are stuck, relieve tension on the tool and gently tap the edge of the spring cap with a brass punch and plastic hammer. Then re-depress the spring and remove the keepers. Gradually release the pressure on the depressing tool. Remove the inner and outer valve springs. Now, pry the valve stem oil seal out with the special seal removal tool. Note, if the exhaust rotator is to be replaced, do it at this time. Lubricate the new valve stem oil seal, then carefully slip the seal onto the valve stem. Use the special valve seal installation tool to seat the seal. If a new valve stem oil seal is carelessly installed or is forced too far down on the valve stem, the seal will be damaged and the engine may use excessive amounts of oil. When properly installed, the lower edge of the seal will rest on the valve guide bevel. Check this with a small long-handled mirror after seal installation. Reinstall the valve springs. Notice the closed coil of the small spring and the color coding of the large spring. They are installed to face the engine block. The spring cap may now be installed. To install the valve keepers on the valve stem, depress the springs with the special tool and seat the 2 valve keepers. Then release pressure on the compressing tool and disconnect the air pressure hose. The procedure for removing and installing valve stem oil seals, springs, caps, and rotators is repeated as necessary at each intake and exhaust valve. When the installation or replacement of these parts is finished, reassemble and time the camshaft. To inspect valve guides, rework valve seats, or replace valves, the cylinder head must be removed from the engine block. Follow technical service manual removal and installation procedures. After the cylinder head is out of the car, remove the camshaft and buckets. To remove valve springs on the bench, Bolt the cylinder head to a wood surface. Use 2 cylinder bolts with nuts to secure the head. Next, remove the valve spring using the special spring compressing tool. Remember, use caution not to mark or scratch tappet bores. The tappets ride on these surfaces. As each valve is removed from the cylinder head, valve stem clearance should be checked with a dial indicator. Unlike other AMC engines, clearance is checked at the valve face instead of the stem. When checking clearance, make sure that the end of the valve stem is flush with the top of the valve guide. The maximum dimensions are as shown. If these clearances are exceeded, refer to the technical service manual for proper repair steps. Because the exhaust valves are plated, they cannot be ground or refaced. However, both the intake valves and intake and exhaust valve seats can be refaced as long as proper dimensions are maintained. When refacing intake valves, the seat dimension of 3.5 millimeters or 138 thousandths of an inch must not be exceeded. When refacing intake and exhaust valve seats, care must be taken not to exceed seat depth and width tolerances. These limits, if exceeded, would require replacement of the cylinder head. Make it a special point to remember that if any valve seat is refaced, the adjustment screw for the bucket tappet relating to that valve might also have to be replaced. This is because the valve rises in relation to the cylinder head and camshaft. Thus, a smaller adjusting screw may be required. The engine oil seals are also unique. Both crankshaft oil seals are replaceable parts, but they do require special tools for removal and installation. To replace the rear seal located at the flywheel end of the crankshaft, first, mark the flywheel location in relation to the crankshaft for reference during assembly. Remove the flywheel, then pry out the unique one-piece lip seal. Align a new seal on the crankshaft and seat it in place with the special tool. Install the flywheel, making sure that the reference marks on the crankshaft and flywheel align. The front crankshaft oil seal can be removed by first removing the crankshaft pulley and sprocket. The one-piece lip seal may now be pried out. Install the front seal with the special tool. Make sure that the seal is properly seated in the front housing. Then reinstall the crankshaft sprocket and pulley. This is the one-piece lip-type oil seal located at the front of the camshaft. It may be replaced without special tools. The front camshaft oil seal is replaced by 1. Relieving timing belt tension, 2. Removing the camshaft front sprocket, 3. Removing the oil pipe, and 4. Loosening camshaft caps in proper sequence. The seal will now easily slide off the end of the camshaft. When installing this oil seal, be sure to follow the proper camshaft cap tightening sequence. A discussion of the 4-cylinder engine would not be complete without an overview of the unique oil lubrication system. This diagram of the lubrication circuit shows conventional oil galleries drilled through the crankshaft. The camshaft and tappets are lubricated in part through an overhead oil pipe. An oil pressure switch at the rear of the cylinder head provides access for checking engine oil pressure. The oil pump is a crankshaft-driven, high-pressure 2-gear type unit, quite similar to that found in an automatic transmission. It rotates at crankshaft speed. That's twice as fast as most engine oil pumps. The oil filter has a unique relief valve arrangement, especially designed for use with the 4-cylinder engine. During oil filter changes, extreme care must be taken to replace the oil filter with the approved type only. These then are the basics on servicing the 4-cylinder engine, and it's easy to do when you use the information presented in this film, the film reference book, and the technical service manual. Remember, Servicing this new engine the right way is a part of your job. Make it your business to service the AMC 4-cylinder engine the right way.